the thing that almost everyone overlooks is sleep. And at the end of the day, look, every single thing you do better with a good night's sleep. So when you talk to people who are stuck in any particular area, when you start to talk to them about their sleep, that is a topic that they're like, I haven't thought about that. Maybe I should be thinking about that. What are some of the things I could do to be better at that?
Welcome to Season of Stuck, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the all too human experience of feeling stuck. I'm your host, Deanna, and on this podcast, we explore all things stuck. How and why stuckness happens, what it feels like, how to learn and grow from it, and ultimately, how to get unstuck and move forward in an authentic, empowered way. If you are looking for insights, support, and community as you make your journey from stuck to unstuck, you're in the right place. Just a heads up that today's episode dives into some health topics. So just a reminder that Season of Stuck is for general information only and should not be considered health, medical, or any other type of professional advice. For more information, you can check out the disclaimer in our show notes. Okay, now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Season of Stuck. I am your host, Deanna, and I just want to say, whether this is your first time listening, you've been tuning in since the beginning, or you're somewhere in between, thank you for being here. I started this podcast because I always found stuckness to be really lonely and isolating. And the fact that I am making the experience of feeling stuck less lonely and isolating, not just for myself, but hopefully for all of you, brings me so much joy and makes me feel the most unstuck I could possibly be. So thank you for being a part of my journey and for letting me be a part of yours. Okay, so jumping into today's topic. Today, we are taking a deep dive into a topic that is so intricately tied to the experience of stuck, and that is sleep. The amount of sleep that you get each night and the quality of that sleep has an incredible influence on how you feel, perform, think, heal, react, interact, focus, move, process. It has a hand in pretty much everything. When you're not getting good sleep, everything is just a little, or in many cases, a lot harder. And that includes getting unstuck. So I am what you could call a sleep enthusiast. I've actually been writing about sleep for the better part of the last decade. And in that time, I've gained a ton of insights into the importance of sleep. And just as important, what you can actually do to get better rest and improve your health, happiness, and well-being in the process. And not only have I learned a lot, but I've also taken those insights and applied them to figure out exactly what works with my body to get the best possible sleep. I have tried everything from cold plunges to red light therapy to binaural beats to pre-bedtime sauna and acupressure mats and yoga, all in the quest to find the habits and practices that help me get the high quality rest I need to feel and perform my best. And I feel like after years of research and study and experimentation, I have a pretty good handle on how to support myself in getting the sleep I need. And when I do those things, I feel amazing. I call sleep a domino habit in the sense that when I have my sleep under control, everything else just kind of falls into place. I make better decisions, I take better care of my body, and if I find myself feeling stuck, I am better able to manage it and figure out a plan on how to get myself unstuck. But even though I have all of this information and data and insight that I've picked up over the past near decade, and even though I know how incredible I feel when I put that information and data and insight to good use, the truth of the matter is, I don't always do it. I can go through phases, whether I'm feeling overwhelmed with work, or I'm going through something stressful, or I'm just being super social and I'm busy all the time, where sleep falls down a few notches on my priority list. And when that happens, without fail, stuckness soon follows. Just like getting good sleep makes everything easier, not getting good sleep makes everything harder. and I find myself on paths that ultimately lead to some type of stuck related experience. For example, when I'm tired, I am less patient and more reactive, which can lead to conflict in my relationships. Or when I'm not prioritizing sleep, my body doesn't have the time and rest it needs to heal and repair itself, which can contribute to flare ups of my autoimmune issues. When I'm not getting solid sleep, I feel less creative and focused and engaged and energetic, all of which can make me feel stuck. And that got me thinking, if I, someone who has spent so much time thinking about and researching and writing about and practicing sleep, still struggles so much with getting the rest I need on a consistent basis, then chances are other people are struggling too. I wanted to know more about the connection between sleep and stuckness and the actionable things we can do to improve our sleep and improve our lives in the process. And that is what led me to today's guest. Known as the sleep doctor, Dr. Michael Breus is a clinical psychologist and sleep medicine expert. In addition to his private practice, he is a sought after speaker, lecturer, and the author of multiple best selling books, including The Power of When, The Sleep Doctor's Diet Plan, and the upcoming Sleep, Drink, Breathe Simple Daily Habits for Profound Long Term Health. During our conversation, Dr. Breus shared so many incredible insights, like how poor sleep contributes to stuckness, and on the flip side, how feeling stuck can contribute to poor sleep. The one change you can make to improve your sleep by a whopping 30 to 40%, and how to identify where you are stuck when it comes to sleep, and how to make the changes you need to get better rest on a consistent basis and get unstuck as a result. Let's jump into my conversation with Dr. Breus. Dr. Breus, welcome to Season of Stuck. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to chat with you. Of all of the topics and all of the lenses through which I plan to explore stuckness, I think that this topic in particular, which is sleep, is one of, if not the most important. So I am just so excited to kind of take a deep dive and understand the role that sleep plays, both in getting and keeping us stuck and helping us to get unstuck.
Well, so first of all, thanks for having me on. And I love the topic, right? Being stuck. So many people think, or at least I've heard it in my office many times, I'm just going to power through, right? I'm just going to grit my teeth and just force my way through whatever area that you could be stuck in. It could be academics, it could be athletics, it could be romance, it could be whatever it is, right? Confidence, anything. And I'm not always the biggest fan of that. I get it. There are times when we have to kind of motivate ourselves to kind of get going. But sometimes when we kind of dig deep for that motivation, it's just not there, or it's not there at the level that we would like it to be. And people always wonder, why am I not, is my nutrition down? Is my stress too high? Yeah, those are both probably good things to look into. But the thing that almost everyone overlooks is sleep. And at the end of the day, look, every single thing you do better with a good night's sleep. The data is super consistent on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk to people who are stuck in any particular area, when you start to talk to them about their sleep, that is a topic that they're like, oh, I haven't thought about that. Maybe I should be thinking about that. What are some of the things I could do to be better at that? Also, some of the things that bring along stuckness and some of the ways you try to unstick yourself can actually make your sleep worse. A big one is caffeine, as an example. A lot of people will be like, I think of writers because I'm a writer. And so I think of writer's block and getting stuck, writing and things like that. And when you're there, what ends up happening? Well, you just grab a cup of coffee and, you buckle down. And before you know it, you've had 3 cups of coffee and it's 11:30 at night. And you're like, oh, crap. Now I have to try to go to sleep. You get crappy sleep. And now you're in the washing machine cycle, of stuckness, thinking you're going to pull yourself out with some stimulant, whether it's anything from cocaine to caffeine to whatever, energy drink of your choice. That doesn't necessarily pull you out of stuckness. It might do something for a short period of time. I mean, let's be fair, caffeine, L-theanine, things of that nature can be very good at helping focus and even elevate your mood and your energy. But it's pretty short lived. I think the big lesson that a lot of people don't get a chance to learn is caffeine does not replace sleep. It delays sleep. And as it delays it, it increases what we call sleep pressure. So the body's want or need for recovery seems to rise the longer you stave off sleep. And then stuff starts happening that you don't want to have happen. Your motor skills slow down. So, here's a real problem is you got writer's block. So you decide you're not sleeping well. So you decide to go out for a drive at, 2:00 in the morning. And guess what? Your reaction time sucks and you get into an accident because you're tired, right? So again, thinking through all of these things, the fundamental basics of things to get people unstuck makes intuitive sense, as sleep being one of them. Another biggie is hydration. So many people have no idea that they're dehydrated. And all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, I didn't drink enough water today. So what do? 11:30 at night, they down, 50 ounces of water, and then they're peeing all night long. And guess what? That screws up your sleep. So there is a universe where you can get unstuck and get good sleep, I think.
First of all, I have experienced all of those things that you're talking about. I'm also a writer, and I have fallen under the spell of the caffeine fallacy, where if I was only a little more alert or a little more awake, then I could power through and tap into this creativity. And then, like you said, it's just kicking the can and the sleep gets worse and worse and worse. And for me personally, I feel like I am both lucky and unlucky. Like, I feel like there's some people that can somewhat at least appear to function with little or poor sleep and can at least kind of play the role. I am not one of those people. I am.
You did not get that gene.
That gene must have skipped a generation in my family, because I am absolutely useless if I don't get proper sleep, if I don't get enough sleep, if I don't get enough restorative sleep, if I am staying up too late, getting out of schedule. So that's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, if I have a day where I haven't gotten enough sleep, it's pretty much shot. I'm not going to be productive. I'm not going to be happy. But on the flip side of that coin, it has really forced me to take my sleep more seriously and better understand the role that sleep plays, not only in my overall health and happiness and well-being, but in these periods or seasons of stuck that I have so often experienced. So yes, all of those things that you said, I was like over here raising my hand like, yep, been there. That's me.
Well, and it's fascinating too, when you look at sleep per se and stuckness, sometimes there's two different results. So for some people, they can't sleep because they're worried about whatever it is that they're stuck on. Other people, all they want to do is sleep, right? They want to escape whatever the thing is that's plaguing them, right? And so you can actually see both ends of the spectrum in sleep. And so, one of the things I oftentimes am talking about to people, like, when somebody turns to me and says, oh, it's my hibernation season, I need my 9 to 10 hours. That's a big red flag, okay? Like, nobody needs 9 hours, just to be clear. Like, unless you have a particular gene, which you would have known about since you were 12, it just doesn't all of a sudden happen that, hey, now all of a sudden I need 9, 10 hours of sleep. That usually means there's a sleep quality problem. You could have developed a sleep disorder, or by the way, you could have depression, right? And that's a whole nother side of this, of being stuck or being unstuck, right? Is there's a huge mental health component to it. And we still haven't even talked about undiagnosed sleep disorders like sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless legs. All of those things could be an underlying factor that you didn't even know what's going on. And then 2 or 3 things happened and bam, they all piled up and now you're stuck. So like, there's always, I would argue, now I am biased because I am the sleep doctor, that you should take a look at your sleep. If you're listening to this podcast, then you should be at least at some point in time thinking to yourself, I wonder what role sleep might be playing here.
And let's dig into that a little bit further. So you're talking about some of these different ways that sleep and stuckness can be related. And everybody's different with their sleep. We all have different sleep challenges. We all have different sleep needs, so on and so forth. But from your perspective as a sleep doctor, where do people most commonly get stuck with sleep? And what is driving that sleep-related stuckness?
Yeah. So people get stuck with sleep in a couple of different sleep-related myths that are out there. Okay. Number one is the 8-hour myth. Okay. Very few people need 8 hours. I'm just going to let you know this. Most people can do just fine on between 6.5 and 7. What we're looking for is a range. If you look at the National Sleep Foundation, if you look at the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, here's what we say for adults. 7 to 9 hours is kind of what you're shooting for. That doesn't mean that you have to get 9 every single night. You can get 7, 9, 7, 9. I don't care. Okay. But what I am saying is it's about consistency and listening to your body. So what like I have a friend who turned to me and he said, and this is a professional athlete, by the way, and he said, one of my coaches told me really early on, I needed to get 8 hours. So whatever time I go to bed, I then just set the alarm for 8 hours later. Like almost nothing could be worse for your circadian rhythm than doing something like that. Okay. Right. But people don't know that. That's the second piece is the lack of information and understanding about how sleep works. So here's what's fascinating is most people think sleep has a lot to do with what's going on at night. Absolutely not true. Sleep has everything to do with what happened as you woke up in the morning. Let me explain the biology here because it's actually quite fascinating. So when you wake up in the morning and your eyes open up and sunlight hits your eyeball, you have a very particular cell in your eye called a melanopsin cell, and it sends a signal to your brain to turn off the melatonin faucet in your head. So number one, everybody should be getting about 15 minutes of sunshine every morning. And that helps kind of clear the brain fog, but it's about the consistency in which you wake up. Let me explain why. I'm going to make a statement and then I'm going to back it up with some science. The time in which you wake up directly determines when melatonin is produced in your body that night. So if it is consistent when you wake up, it is consistent when you go to sleep. So if during the week you're getting up at 6 a.m., approximately 14 hours later, melatonin kicks off and it will start moving through your body at 8. It takes about 90 minutes for it to get up to your brain and start to do its thing. You get tired around 9:30. You're going to bed at 10 o'clock. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But if it's Saturday and you decide to sleep in by 2 hours until 8 o'clock, melatonin doesn't kick off until 10. And then now you've missed that window that you're used to. And now your body's not even getting tired when it used to. So having a variable wake up time has a direct effect on when melatonin is produced at night, which starts your feelings of sleepiness and starts the entire sleep process. So the easiest way to get unstuck is to wake up at the exact same time every single day, which you can do with an alarm. Right? You can say, hey, I'm cutting through all the BS. I'm going to get up every single day at 6:53, whatever. I don't care, whatever it is. Right. And then you are consistent about that. Then your body actually knows how to do things right. Now we're starting to move towards getting unstuck because this is something that people do is they think to themselves, well, I just got to let my body sleep. Maybe that's what it needs. Right. They say to themselves, oh, I'm not supposed to get up at 6:42. My body's still tired. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep. Once again, bodies work best on consistencies. This is a machine. Like, just to be clear, I mean, yeah, it's made of tissue and we're living and all that kind of good stuff. But at the end of the day, the machine works the best when it's following the same pattern, right? Because it knows where to go. It's more efficient in all the hormonal communication and things like that. Now, this is very, very important is that consistency. Now, a lot of people say, well, Michael, when should I wake up? I mean, should I wake up at 6:15? Should I wake up at 7? Like, what do you think? So it turns out it's already pre-programmed in your body. It's called a chronotype. Okay. Now, a lot of people have not heard of this term before, but if you've ever been called an early bird or a night owl, those are chronotypes. Believe it or not, it's genetic. I can go to a very specific place on the human genome, basically the PER3 area, which is one of about 40 something different areas that control circadian rhythms, but this one's a biggie. And if the building blocks, your ATP building blocks are flipped one way, you're a night owl. And if they're flipped another way, you're an early bird. Those will help determine what time you should wake up. My early birds, they get up really early, 5:30, maybe 5:45. My people in the middle, they have a tendency to want to get up around 6:45, 7. My night owls, which is what I used to be, we're pushing the snooze button and trying to, stay in bed as long as we can because we didn't go to bed particularly early. Like I almost never go to bed before midnight. So there is a little bit that has to do with your chronotype, but it's really about consistency. People come up to me all the time and they're like, hey, Michael, what's the one thing I need to do to fix my sleep? I hate that question. I used to say, make an appointment with me because that would work. But now I tell people, I say, wake up based on your chronotype 7 days a week consistently. Like if all you ever do is just do that, I can almost assure you your sleep will improve by 30, 40%.
That is a crazy number, like 30 to 40% sleep improvement just by tuning into your own body and listening to the signals that it's sending you. Now, question on that. So, you're saying that these chronotypes are actually genetic predispositions to wanting to have a certain sleep and wake cycle. But what would you suggest people do if they find that their natural inclination for sleep wake cycles doesn't necessarily fit their lifestyle? For example, let's say I'm a night owl, but I have to get up for work at 6:30 in the morning. Or I'm an early bird and the demands of my family, I really need to be my most productive in the late afternoon. Is there a way to work with your body's natural rhythms to set a sleep schedule that not only works for your body, but also works for your life and your current lifestyle?
So I would say yes, depending upon the parameters within said lifestyle, right? So as an example, I work with a DJ. His name is Steve Aoki. He's a very famous EDM guy, right? And he doesn't go on until midnight, usually 11:30 midnight is when he actually enters the stage, right? So he's a shift worker. I mean, he's a night owl naturally, but he's not that much of a night owl.
Mhm.
And so, you know what I'm saying? So like there's tweaks that you can do. But for example, if I've got somebody who's a nighttime person who's being forced to wake up early, then I'm going to have them take a nap at lunch, right? Very specific. I'm going to have them do a very specific nap, very particular kind of nap, very particular timing, exactly when to do it, and have them get that energy from that because they're going to be making up for some sleep during that nap time, right? Now, if I've got, let's say, an early bird who, for example, has to have energy in the evening time, what we've learned is if we move their workout from early morning to mid to late afternoon, it gives them a lot more energy into the evening time. But a lot of early birds, because it's quiet, they like to get their workout in the early times in the morning. So I'll reserve that time for creativity, journaling, meditation, starting your day, getting your day ready. And you can actually use that exercise to extend your day if you're an early morning person. I actually wrote a book about all of this called The Power of When, WHEN, like when to do things based on these things called your chronotypes. So you can actually go take my quiz at chronoquiz.com. We'll put it in the show notes. And it's pretty cool because you can figure out exactly what your chronotype is in about 30 questions. And then it kind of unlocks all the cool stuff. And I think a lot of people get stuck because they're trying to do stuff when their body doesn't actually want them to. Like the reason that I like to make sleep so consistent is it kind of works as like a tuning fork for the rest of the body, right? So if you're getting good sleep, lots of other good things happen, right? If you have good hydration, good sleep, and you breathe well, literally almost nothing else matters. But if you can do all three of those, that's when the unstuckness of it all seems to kind of surface.
You bring up such a good point. That was 100% my experience. Over the years of really digging into my sleep and the data and understanding when I feel rested and when I'm most productive, I've realized that my body, for whatever reason, is generally at its most energetic, most productive, most able to focus and get things done middle of the day. So no matter how hard I try or how much I force myself to try to do like my most productive work in the morning, it just doesn't work for me. Everything takes longer.
If you take my quiz, I bet you're a bear.
Well, I was going to say, I know what I'll be doing after this interview is going to find my chronotype. So it sounds like one of the areas that people get stuck when it comes to sleep is these kind of not so great sleep habits. They're not being consistent with their wake up and sleep time. Maybe they're trying to force themselves into a sleep schedule that doesn't really work for their body. But I also see a lot, and has been my experience, that people can also get stuck in not so great pre-bedtime habits. So, for example, we're doing the doom scroll at midnight when we're supposed to be sleeping. What, in your perspective, are some of the worst habits that you could do before bed that's going to keep you stuck? And why do those habits so negatively impact our ability to get good sleep?
Going to bed too early is a definite stuck problem. Because here's what happens is you felt like crap all day and you've got your partner to deal with the kids and you're like, I'm getting in bed at 8 o'clock and I'm going to catch up on all of my sleep. But you forget about this thing called your circadian rhythm, which doesn't actually want you to go to bed at 8 o'clock. It wants you to go to bed at whatever time you woke up, melatonin 14 hours later time. And so you get in bed, and one of two things happens. You fall asleep for about 45 minutes, wake up, and then you're done. You will not fall back asleep for the rest of the night. Or you don't fall asleep for a good 2 hours. You look at the ceiling and get pissed off. Okay. Now, what's going on here? You're mismatched to, again, your chronotype. You're physically exhausted. But remember, there are two parts to the sleep system in the brain. There's sleep drive, which is that physical exhaustion feeling. But there's also sleep rhythm, which tells you when to go to bed. It's a lot like the rhythm for hunger. So you could be hungry, but most people find they're hungry around breakfast time, around lunchtime, and around dinner time. Same old true with sleep. Sleep drive kind of builds throughout the day. But if you get in bed too early and you don't have enough sleep drive, you're not going to fall asleep. So one of the big problems that a lot of people do is they try to escape and get in bed too early. That turns out to be a real problem. Another big problem, alcohol. There's a really big difference between going to bed and passing out, okay? I try to explain this to people all the time, and people are like, I just want to relax. This is how I relax. And they're 3 glasses of wine in, and all of a sudden they wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. They feel like crap. They're for sure going to have bad sleep the rest of that night and feel pretty crappy the next day. And they really haven't accomplished any of those goals. Now, I'm not a teetotaler. I don't have any problem with adult beverages, but at the same time, you really have to think about when you have them and how much you have, because it will affect your sleep. What I tell people is stop at 2 drinks. And if you can, put a glass of water in between each drink. Number 1, it fills your stomach with some liquid, which is going to slow you down drinking anyway. Number 2, it won't dehydrate you nearly as much. Remember, alcohol is a diuretic. Once you break the seal, you're going to be peeing, and you don't want to have to pee all night long. So you want to get much of that alcohol out of your system, and then have your last drink be consumed approximately 3 hours before lights out. So if you get into bed at 11, have your last sip at 8, then you're on water for the rest of the night. You've enjoyed a awesome meal, with your partner and had a great romantic time, and it's not going to crush your sleep. So I think that's another big factor is alcohol and when you consume. And then there are more positive things that people, I think, can do to help unstick them mentally and physically, which is exercise. Now, if you're stuck and you're plateaued in exercise, that's a different area. But let's just, for example, say that exercise isn't your stuckness area, then exercise is a fantastic place to help, number 1, get rid of some of that nervous energy that you've kind of got built up. But number 2, to help your sleep. I mean, the data is solid on this. If you are a regular exerciser, you sleep better, period, drop the mic. That's just how it works.
That has absolutely been my experience. I can tell when I am getting enough exercise based on how well I am sleeping.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious, when it comes to exercise, what is the optimal way to exercise in order to support better sleep? Like, is there a certain time of day? Is there a certain type of exercise?
Yes and yes. So in my book, The Power of When, I actually break down the exercises based on your chronotype, because certain exercises are better to do in the morning, certain exercises are better to do at night. So I look at cardio versus weights, and then yoga and team sports. So there's 4 different kind of ways that you can go about doing it. And I actually give very specific times as to when you should do all of those types of things. But as a general guideline, here's what I tell people. If you're a morning person, it's going to be better to exercise in the morning. If you're a night person, it's going to be better to exercise at night. Number 1, it's just about safety usually, because for night people, mornings just suck for us. They just do. And so I'm very likely to drop something on my foot at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning rather than at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Because I'm a night owl. Like, same holds true with early birds, right? Don't decide that you're going to go-kart racing at 10 o'clock at night, with all of your friends and think you're going to win, because you've been up since 4:30 and, that's not going to work out too well. So things like that.
There are so many different ways to go from stuck to unstuck. But one of the most productive, learning. Learning something new can help you expand your skill set and find new interest, and in the process, help you get unstuck. And if you want to learn something new, you will definitely want to check out Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers thousands of classes designed to help you learn, grow, and tap into your creativity, all of which can help you make the journey from stuck to unstuck. And right now, Skillshare is offering a free month to new members. If you want to access Skillshare's entire library of classes and get the education and instruction you need to shake off the stuckness, just visit seasonofstuck.com/Skillshare and sign up for your free trial today. Again, that's seasonofstuck.com/Skillshare. I really like this chronotype-based approach because one of the challenges that I find in the wellness world in general, not just sleep, is that health advice and insights can be so general. Like, if you want to be healthy, do A, B, and C. And most of us don't fit into a mold where A, B, and C is going to work. So I really love this approach of not just saying, this is how much sleep you should get, this is how to do it, but really personalizing the sleep experience and understanding your own body, its makeup, and what sleep will work best for you.
Yep. And it is that individualized. Like, you can get as granular on this as you want. And to be fair, the more you know about it, the better it works. Like, I mean, I understand things about my sleep schedule now, and I can turn to people and they can be like, oh, I had I had one bad night. And I'm like, hey, yeah, but how quickly did you snap back? And they were like, oh, I was back to my normal a night later. And I said, how did that used to work? And they were like, oh, it would take weeks for me to get back to, a normal sleep schedule. So there's lots of cool stuff. Like, the more micro you get involved, the more personalized you get involved with it, I think the better off you are. There are different kinds of sleepers. Let's be fair. And let's be also honest. This isn't rocket science. I mean, come on. There are different kinds of sleepers just from living in a household with your family, right? Your kids sleep differently than your partner. And when you were a kid, your parents slept differently than you. So, this is really just about maybe taking a little bit more personal responsibility for your health, and not just thinking that the world, I can eat whatever, is in the grocery store because, the FDA says it's okay. And, I can breathe whatever air and, all that stuff. Like, we're at that stage of life and wellness now where we have enough information, we have enough technology to tell it to us. Now we need to act on it, right? And so we have to be active participants in our own wellness. And I think also the act of becoming active in that area helps unstick people, because they're not so focused on that area and they're doing something that they feel good about that has, positive repercussions. And I don't know about you, but like, once the positivity starts flowing in me, lots of good stuff happens, And so if I can't unstick myself, but I can control this one area of my physical that I can make better, I feel better. And then all of a sudden things get unstuck.
The first step is always the most challenging step. But then once you take that step and you start to get that positive feedback and positive reinforcement, it becomes kind of like a snowball effect.
Yeah, totally. And that's the best part about it. And so, for people out there who are listening, number one, definitely think about sleep, because that is a huge deal. And so many people don't think about it. Number two, if you're stuck and you can't control your stuckness, then look for something where you can have a level of control and some positivity. Like, hey, I might not be able to figure out the next paragraph, but I can do 100 push-ups today. That's not going to hurt me, that kind of stuff.
So your recommendation is for people, if they're feeling stuck, to take a look at their sleep. And I think that we, in general, as a society, have heard for years and years and years, sleep is important, get good sleep. There's all this information that sleep is important, but I think that a lot of people struggle with understanding why sleep is important. Like, why is it so important for our health, for our happiness, for our well-being, to make sure that we're prioritizing getting the sleep that we need?
Yeah. So sleep affects every organ system and every disease state. Literally everything you do better with a good night's sleep. I mean, there's nothing else like that except for hydration and air, right? And so when you start to think about it, like, these are the three basic fundamentals. What I thought you were going to ask me was, these are great general recommendations, like, look at your sleep. But Michael, how do we look at our sleep?
Also that.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, I think it's easier than people think. So number one, there are a lot of trackers and things like that are out in the universe that you can purchase. Okay. To be fair, they're expensive. Are they more accurate than you guessing? Maybe a little, but not as much as you might imagine. I personally tell people all the time, get a sleep diary, paper, pencil, and just every morning write down your data. In a week, you will understand so much more about your sleep. It won't have cost you a dime. Okay. There's 100 sleep diaries on the internet. Go to thesleepdoctor.com, type in sleep diary. I tell you exactly what to put on it. And just do this for a week. Just do your own data analysis for a week. And you'll start to see things like, oh, wow, like my bedtime, it really is much more inconsistent than I thought. Oh, wow, my wake up time, I'm hitting the snooze button more times these days than other days. I wonder what that's about. Like, get some good information going because that's going to be valuable to you. Then you need to try to find someone to help you evaluate it if it's something that's, more than you think you can handle on your own. That's when you would talk with your doctor. And by the way, bringing a sleep diary into your doctor is the best. Let me tell you why, because he's going to ask you or she's going to ask you a million questions about your sleep, and you're going to have to figure it all out and kind of historically think back. Meanwhile, if you've got it all in the diary, you can just hand it to him and say, hey, this is what I've got. Because guess what? As a sleep specialist, that's exactly what I would ask you to do is I would say, go home for a week and do a sleep diary and bring it to me so I can actually see what is the baseline in which I'm starting. And many people have the trackers and they say, well, what if I just, you log into my trackers? And I say, I'll do that anyway. Get your butt writing stuff down. I want an active participant in this, right? I want you to become a sleep scientist, if you will, because here's what's so cool is when people work with me, they'll sleep better for the rest of their lives, right? Because I don't give them a pill, I give them a skill, right? And so that's where it gets really important because now they've got the skill for sleep. That's so much more valuable than, saying, hey, you're on trazodone for the rest of your life. You're on Ambien, take your Valium. I mean, look, are there patients out there like that? Of course. Do I have those patients? Of course. But at the end of the day, that's not where you want people. You really want the majority of people to have a skill, right? To be able to sleep better.
Well, and I love the idea of a sleep journal because the trackers are great at giving us quantitative data. It's great at giving us the numbers, but when you're actually tracking on your own and writing down how you feel when you went to bed, that's such good qualitative data that you can then extrapolate to figure out more personalized ways to get better sleep.
Yeah. So at the end of my sleep diary, so I give people a list of questions, but at the end, there's two rating scales. One is for quality, the other is for quantity, right? So as soon as you wake up on a scale of 1 to 5, rate your sleep, rate the quantity of sleep that you got and the quality of sleep that you got. What I'm trying to capture there is that how do you feel? Like, how do you wake up and feel? Because to be honest, if you wake up and feel like crap, what's the point?
That brings up a very good point and something that I am so curious about, which is this idea of quality versus quantity sleep. So I can speak for myself. I have had the experience where from a numbers perspective, I got a good night's sleep. And yet I wake up feeling exhausted, brain fog, cranky, just not like I got good sleep at all. So when it comes to sleep, how important is quantity versus quality? And how can you ensure that the sleep that you're getting isn't just time logged on the clock, but actual quality sleep that you need to feel your best?
You just set me up for all the good stuff here. So if you sleep within your chronotype, within your like chronotypical swim lane, it's all quality because that's when your body wants to sleep, right? So that's the whole argument for sleeping as close to or within your chronotypical time frame as you possibly can. And that's how you get the higher quality sleep. Quality is always more important than quantity. Always, always, always. In fact, I've gotten to the point now where some of my celebrities, CEOs, they'll turn to me and they'll be like, okay, I've only got 6.5 hours, period. That's all I've got. How can you make those the best 6 possible? I can do that. I can absolutely positively do that. I can make those the best friggin' 6 hours you've ever had in your life, right? But because quality is so important, but you have to follow some pretty strict rules. I have to have you within your chronotype. I have to have caffeine out of the system. I have to have alcohol out of the system. I have to have certain lighting that goes on. Like there's a lot of stuff that has to go on to do this. But to be fair, it's possible. If I had to choose quantity over quality, I'm always going to choose quality. Always, always, always. Even if it's short, I'd rather have 3 hours of super good quality sleep than 6 hours of shit. Honestly, I just would.
So it sounds like, and this is very empowering, that getting good sleep, a lot of that is in our control. There are things that we can do.
I tell people this all the time. So many people are like, oh, I can't control my sleep. Bullshit. Okay. I promise you, that is the whole point. By having a set wake up time, you are officially controlling your sleep. If you stick it within your chronotype, you're officially controlling your sleep. If you stop caffeine by 2 p.m., you're officially controlling your sleep. If you exercise daily, you're officially controlling your sleep. Let's keep going, right? You can just go, go, go. You absolutely have control over your sleep. But so many people, when they get in bed and they don't, the light switch doesn't pop off the second that they want it to, they're like, oh, I've got insomnia. I better go take a pill. No, cut it out. Come on, this isn't that tough.
I do have a question on that. With so much of it being in our control, there are also people who have certain issues with their sleep where they do need the support of a professional, or there needs to be a little bit deeper of an exploration going on. So at what point, when someone is exploring their sleep and making these changes, what should they be on the lookout for to determine, okay, this is just kind of quote unquote normal sleep stuckness that I can change versus nothing is changing and I need to get some help?
Yeah. So here's what I think of. I think of frequency and duration when I think of that. So if it's more than 3 times a week that you're having sleep problems and it's lasting for more than 3 weeks a month, and that's happened for more than 2 or 3 months, you need to see a sleep doctor. I call it the rule of threes. But basically, that's kind of how I start to look at it. Now, where I thought you were going with this was the question of, are there some people that do need a pill to sleep? And I was going to answer, yes, there are. And, I don't want people out there to think like, oh, I'm raising the white flag, I'm taking an Ambien. There are many people out there that require a pill to sleep. It is no fault of their own. It's kind of like high blood pressure. Like you can eat right, you can exercise, and you can still have high blood pressure and you still need a pill. Does that mean you're addicted to the pill? No, of course it doesn't. But why people think about the sleeping pills like that, I don't understand. At the end of the day, we don't want people on sleeping pills for extended periods of time. However, if you're a paranoid schizophrenic, guess what? You get sleeping pills for the rest of your life. Okay. That's just how it works sometimes. So we find the instances, and I'm not picking on paranoid schizophrenics. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, there are certain situations where medication is required and or probably the norm. And that's okay. If you have had a conversation with your doctor and you are comfortable with it, stick with it. I would never in a million years tell you to come off of it. But if you don't like it and you're taking a pill, talk with your doctor and say, hey, I'd like to come off of this pill. Or maybe talk with your doctor about using a pill to break the cycle of insomnia, like a 30 or 60-day use of the pill. Then you taper off of it slowly while working with somebody on cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And guess what? Now you have a skill, not a pill.
I love that approach because I think that particularly with medications, there's sometimes shame or stigma associated with taking a medicine, not taking a medicine. And I think it's important to be able to determine what works best for you and your body and take what works from lots of different things and assemble a sleep routine that works for you. And I appreciate that that's your approach as well.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I can't stand all these rules. Everybody has to have 8 hours of sleep. Everybody, come on. First of all, when all of those rules were made up, sleep isn't even the same sleep. Think about it. Those rules came out in the 1930s, 1940s. Sleep is not the same today in 2024 as it was in 1940. I can assure you of that, right? Different stressors, different life circumstances. Sleep has evolved. So shouldn't our ideas of sleep evolve with it? And shouldn't we say, hey, there's lots of tools in the tool chest. Let's figure out which type of screwdriver we need for this type of screw, and let's see if we can figure it all out. Again, it shouldn't be hard and it should be empowering. I think that's the other thing that I think a lot of people have missed out on historically was there was a doctor who was going to hand you a prescription and you were going to be stuck on a pill, and that person was a gatekeeper and you were kind of at their mercy. No, 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 no. That's not how we do it anymore. It shouldn't be how we do it anymore. We use pills to help us break the cycle. Then we teach you how to do it through cognitive behavioral therapy. Then you come off said pills, and now you know how to sleep. It works great. And if you can't get off the pills, that's okay too. Again, we figure out what's best for you and empower you so that you have the control to understand how to sleep better.
Dr. Breus, I feel like we've covered so much ground in terms of sleep. I love to tie things up with a little bow for listeners.
Sure.
So if someone comes to you, I'm a client, I come to see you, Dr. Breus, and I say, hey, I'm stuck. I'm not getting good sleep. I don't know what's going on. Please help me. what are the top pieces of advice you're going to give me to make that journey from stuck to unstuck and start getting the sleep that I need?
I'm going to give you a 5-step plan. Okay. Step number 1 is to wake up at the same time every single day based on your chronotype. That's 7 days a week. We already discussed why. Step number 2 is to stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours. So if you stop at 2, at least half of it is out of your system by 10, which is when most people are trying to go to bed. So that's a good place to start with caffeine limiting, but not having it after 2. Step number 3 is to stop alcohol 3 hours before lights out. We discussed that a little bit earlier. Step number 4 is to exercise daily. This is a great way to improve sleep quality, but you don't want to exercise too close to bedtime. That can increase your core body temperature, make it difficult to fall asleep. So step number 4 is to not exercise within 4 hours of bedtime. And step number 5 has to do with how you wake up. So I have people do what I call the 3:15s, which is when you wake up, you spin your legs over, put your feet on the ground and take 15 deep breaths. You then should have a glass of water next to you and drink 15 ounces of room temperature water. Then if you can, walk outside and get 15 minutes of sunlight. This turns off the melatonin faucet in your head, and it's just enough time to give you enough vitamin D to start your day. So in summary, step number 1, wake up at the same time every single day based on your chronotype. Step number 2, stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3, stop alcohol 3 hours before bed. Step number 4, exercise daily, but stop exercise 4 hours before bed. And step number 5 is to do the 3:15s, which is 15 deep breaths, 15 ounces of water, and 15 minutes of sunshine.
Ugh, my type A heart just loves a 5-step system. So thank you for breaking that down. Dr. Breus, this has been incredible. Thank you for all of the insights. Here at Season of Stuck, as we approach the end of our conversation, we just like to wrap things up with a few questions. So if it's okay with you, I just have a few more questions for you.
Rapid fire. Let's go.
Okay, so question 1. Thinking about the ideal future version of yourself, like the version of yourself that you're working every day to one day grow into. If that version of you could travel back in time and speak to the current version of you, what advice do you think that they would give you on how to navigate feelings of stuckness at this point of your life?
Buy Tesla stock. That's what it would say to me.
That will help you sleep better.
No, seriously. I mean, that is actually the first thing that came to my head. But what would I say to myself? I think the biggest thing would be that some of the things that you think are a really big deal are not, right? And we always do that. In the moment, we think things are much bigger than they are. And family turns out to be much more important than business for sure.
I love that advice. When I am struggling with something, I will often ask myself, is this going to matter in 5 years? And if the answer is no, maybe don't worry about it so much. Okay, and now the next few questions are just rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you a question, whatever comes to your mind, first thing. Okay, number 1, favorite movie of all time?
Caddyshack.
Number 2, go-to coffee order?
Black.
Number 3, if you could have any animal in the world as a pet, what animal would it be?
French bulldog.
Oh God, they're so cute. I cannot with their
I
cannot with their little faces. How do you get anything done? I would just stare at them all day.
We never get anything done. It's fantastic. I love my dogs. I hang out with them constantly. The only other dog I really want one day is a Malinois, just because they're so super cool and you can train them to do so many interesting, fun things. And I just love animals.
Yes, I have 2 dogs and they are my BFFs and I love them so much, but they prevent me. They are definitely productivity killers because if they're around, I'm not doing much else.
But here's the thing. I actually spend about 3 minutes every single morning with my dogs. After I take them on a walk, I sit on the floor and I play with them. And there's something about unconditional love every morning that is worth it. Like, it's a great way to start your day. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. If your dogs like you, which they always do, life is pretty good.
Oh my God. It has added a layer of joy to my life that I didn't know was possible before I had dogs. So they're the best.
Totally.
And then last question, what is the best concert that you've ever been to?
Oh, the best concert I've ever been to was Dueling Pianos, Elton John, Billy Joel. It was insane.
Okay, first of all, that sounds insane. And because you said that, I have to share my story of my best concert is Billy Joel at the Hollywood Bowl. So
yes.
Have you been to the Bowl before?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so you know that you can kind of go in early and you can picnic. So I was there with my cousin.
Chill out. There's a lawn.
Yep.
Whole thing.
We went early. We were kind of eating our dinner and someone came up to us and asked if we wanted to move up. And it turned out that it was someone that worked with Billy Joel. And I guess he does this at a lot of his concerts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when they found out we were from New York, they gave us front row center seats. So
wow.
I got to see Billy Joel front row center at the Hollywood Bowl. And I'm like, this is it. Hands down, best concert I'll ever see.
That's amazing. He's such a showman, and he plays all of his old stuff, and it's all good. Like, it was great. That was probably the best show. And my wife was 7 months pregnant, and we went to the show together, and they played it in the round, but they sold the front seats first, and then they realized that everybody wanted it. So they sold the seats behind the stage, and they just dropped the curtain. So we were kind of looking at the back of them. But we ended up, because they pushed the stage all the way to the back, we had perfect seats, and like we could actually see them. They were literally dueling pianos where they were both playing at the same time. It was so cool.
Those are two of the most legendary musicians of all time. So I can only imagine what it was like to see them together.
But the second one is probably the Grateful Dead, 1986 at the Fox.
Also great ones. You've seen some good shows.
I was into music you can't, well, maybe you can see right there.
Uh-huh.
Insomniac. I'm a music guy for sure.
I love it. Well, hopefully you're seeing some good concerts this summer.
We'll see. And it's so funny that you ask about that, because my icebreaker when I sit down at a table where I don't know everybody is my first question is, what was your first concert?
That's a great one. I do favorite, you do first. I might have to try that one out. I'm going to steal it from you.
What was your first?
My first concert ever was actually The Who. They played the entire Quadrophenia album when I was 12. I was very young.
That's amazing. Wow.
I wanted to see a boy band, and my dad was like, your first concert is not going to be a boy band. I'm going to take you to something that you're going to thank me for later. And now, all of these years later, I could not be any more grateful that I can say that my first concert was The Who and not NSYNC.
Wow, that's amazing. My first concert was Barry Manilow, and I took my dad.
I bet that was a great show to see with your dad.
Right? I won tickets on the radio. I was 9, and we went to a show. It was great.
I love that. Dr. Breus, thank you so much for carving time out to speak with me today. This conversation
was fun.
Was so helpful, and I feel like I have so many tips on how to get my sleep game on point, and I know listeners will feel the same. If anyone listening wants to connect with you, learn more about you and your work, get your book, how can they do that?
Yep. So thesleepdoctor.com. I've got the same handle on every social media thing you could possibly imagine. So connect with me there. And I have a new book coming out in December. So we'll let you know when that comes out. Just check the website and join the email newsletter. That's probably the best way to get all of my information, and then take the Chrono quiz as well.
I was going to say, I'm going to take the Chrono quiz literally this afternoon.
Love it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dr. Breus.
Sweet dreams.
That's it for today. A huge thank you to our guests for their incredible insights, and a huge thank you to you, our listeners. We know that there are so many podcasts out there to choose from, and we are just so grateful that you chose ours. If you enjoyed today's episode, consider recommending the podcast to a friend or family member that you think would enjoy it. And to make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is you get your podcasts. And while you're there, if you loved the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It plays such a huge part in getting this podcast out to a wider audience and ultimately supporting more people on their journey from stuck to unstuck. And to keep in touch and access even more stuck-related content, follow us on Instagram @SeasonOfStuck and visit our website, seasonofstuck.com, where you can sign up to get episodes delivered directly to your inbox. Thank you again for being here. It is so, so appreciated. Until next time, I'm Deanna DeBera, and you're listening to Season of Stuck.